Hello, I'm Ryan McKinnon.
I'm Elizabeth Djinis.
We're the education reporters here at the Herald-Tribune, and tomorrow's the big day. Both Manatee and Sarasota are going to be having their property tax referendums. Both counties are proposing raising taxes by in Manatee would be a raising the property taxes by $1 million. Sarasota would be an extension of that.
Exactly.
And in both counties, it's going to bring in millions for the district. Manatee, there's a lot of opposition to it. Sarasota, not as much. Elizabeth, you want to tell us about Sarasota?
So in Sarasota, just to give you a brief background, this tax has been around since 2002. It was actually up for a vote in 2000, did not pass, and then it was up again in 2002. It's a $1 million tax, which means $1 for every $1,000 of taxable property value. So it goes towards primarily 30 extra minutes of instructional time in the day for Sarasota students, higher salaries for teachers, and art programs, a lot of art programs.
And in Manatee, this is going to be the first time that they've attempted to get this additional revenue. The money in Manatee would primarily go towards enhancing teacher salaries. Just a few numbers for you. This is the reason why they're saying they need it. In Manatee, teachers are paid close to $9,000 less on average than they are in Sarasota. There's a pretty huge gulf there. About $2,000 less than the statewide average. And so the goal of this referendum is to bring in about $30 million new dollars in revenue, and about half of that is going to go towards staff salary enhancements.
And in Sarasota, in the last year, the taxes yielded about $55 million. And since 2014, which is the last time it was up for renewal and it passed, it's garnered for the district $213 million. So that's a lot of money, and it makes up about 13%, at least last year, of the district's operating budget, which means those are not capital funds. They can't go towards new construction projects or anything like that, but just the operating costs of running the school district here.
And the opposition to it in Manatee has been a lot more pronounced than it has been in Sarasota. Manatee, 5 years ago was in really bad financial condition. They've made major improvements since then. Their last audit came back with, it wasn't perfect, but it was a dramatic improvement over what happened in 2013-14 time period. So that's the opposition can really seize on that, though, the fact that Manatee hasn't managed its finances well. In the not super distant past. One thing that people are also saying is that if Manatee, if this tax succeeds, Manatee would be the only district in the state to collect a half-cent sales tax and an additional $1 million on property tax, and so it would make it one of the highest taxed districts in the state. And there's been some confusion among folks as to why have a sales tax and a property tax, and the board's reasoning for this is those two taxes go into different buckets. The property taxes can pay for operations, which is salaries and day-to-day expenses, whereas the sales tax can only be spent on capital expenses, which is building schools and things like that. So but that is one point that the opposition has made, is that if this passes, Manatee would have substantially higher taxes than a lot of other districts.
So in Sarasota, you have kind of an interesting, different situation. You don't have this kind of group opposition that you have in Manatee County. Part of that is because obviously the tax has been around now for a while, so people are more used to seeing how the district has spent it. And I think a lot of people do feel like it's been effective. Sarasota County is one of only, I want to say, 2 districts in the state of Florida to have maintained an A grade since the Department of Education started grading districts. So, but one of the things that's interesting is I wrote an article this weekend. Like I said, it's been hard to find people who will publicly oppose the referendum. So at panels where people have wanted to have a debate between people who support the referendum and people who oppose it, they just haven't been able to find someone who will speak to talking against the referendum. That's also not to say that there aren't people who will vote against it. Definitely based on at least the commenters in our stories, there are, at least a minority of people who want to vote against this tax. It's hard to say how many of those people there are, but there aren't really signs in Sarasota or any kind of active campaigning against the referendum.
And in Manatee, a lot of the opposition to it has been spearheaded by Carlos Baruf, the developer, and he spent a lot of money. It's raised about $55,000 so far for a political action committee called Common Sense Manatee, which has funded a social media and a lot of flyers going out.
So we have one question. People seem to be a little confused if they can go to their normal precinct tomorrow to vote.
You can. So you can search on either the Sarasota County or Manatee County supervisor election sites if you don't know which precinct you're supposed to go to based on your home address. But you can go to the regular precinct. You can also go to the supervisor of elections offices in Manatee County or Sarasota County if you prefer to vote that way. But regular precincts will be open. And as you probably know, there was early voting from, I want to say, the 10th to the 17th going on. In Manatee County, I want to say, I don't have the exact numbers on that, but in Sarasota County, I believe about almost 6,000 people voted. And so far, I think both counties have almost, I want to say, between 30,000 and 40,000 vote by mail ballots that were returned. So a lot of people are coming out to vote.
Ryan, and actually Elizabeth too. William Stuck asked, why did Manatee County waste money on a special election like this?
Right, so that's a question everybody's asking. When the board decided to do this, they had the option of either holding an election now or waiting till either the primary in August or the general election in November. They decided to do it in March. There's a couple reasons. There's the sort of the official reason and then kind of the political reason. The official reason is that if the referendum passes, then the board will be able to use that money for salaries starting next year. If they wait until August or November, then they wouldn't be able to use the money until 2019, 2020. So that's kind of one reason. The other reason that a lot of political folks have said is you have a better chance of something passing in a special election when the people who really support it come out. That's according to numerous different folks who have worked on these types of campaigns. And then also a lot of school board members will be up for re-election in August and November, and so it would be very complicated politically to be campaigning for re-election for your school board position at the same time as a very controversial tax is up for vote.
So in Sarasota, the issue of a special election versus a general election has also been a big topic of debate, even though that was addressed towards Manatee County. This year, it wasn't really a question because, kind of like Ryan said, the tax is a 4-year tax. So if they were to push it to a general election, they would lose about like 6 months of that tax. So they felt like it had to be in March. But it was a question for the ballot language of this year if it was going to be a 3-year or 4-year renewal. So a 3-year renewal would put it at a general election instead of a special election. And that was ultimately voted against. The board decided against that. But some of the reasons in favor of a special election are the same as Ryan said, that it is easier for this to pass, they say, during a special election because there are far less issues on the ballot, and people can, theoretically, it takes less money to campaign during a special election than it would during a general election. So this has just kind of always been the way Sarasota County has done it.
Somebody on the website asked, in Manatee, the students will stay 15 minutes longer but get 30 more minutes of instruction. How does that work?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that the money is going to, is extending the school day. It is kind of confusing. The actual day is only going to be 15 minutes longer, but the kids are going to get 30 more minutes of instruction because they're going to be pulling minutes from downtime in the middle of the day, a few minutes from planning periods and from between classes. I'm not exactly sure the exact way they're doing it, but it'll total kids get an additional 30 minutes of instruction, but the day is only 15 minutes longer.
So can you talk a little bit about teacher salaries, especially between Manatee and Sarasota? Because they think that this will help them with recruitment and to fill positions in Manatee County. But you wrote a story that kind of, not debunked that, but kind of threw some shade on that. Yeah,
the teacher shortage is a big issue. And to listen to folks in Manatee talk about it, you would think it only exists in Manatee County and only exists because of low salaries. When you reach out to districts all over the state, though, it's everywhere. And in Sarasota, the surprising thing that we found is that they had roughly the same amount of vacancies as Manatee, if not at different points higher. I think it was a little bit higher right when we asked. I don't think it's on average higher, but it showed that higher salaries doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to deal with the teacher shortage, because that's a nationwide issue. It certainly helps Sarasota recruit and bring in teachers, but something that is a national issue isn't necessarily going to be fixed just with this one local tax.
And something that's interesting, kind of following up on that, is that in Sarasota we had a little bit of a controversy because the district put up this big sign around the time that teachers were actually picketing outside of the district headquarters because there were these lengthy contract negotiations. They put up this sign that said, Sarasota County teachers are the highest paid teachers in the state. it was either highest or best paid. But either way, the argument for that, because I believe they're ranked based on average salary second in the state and based on median salary. So those are kind of different ways of looking at it, whether it's, the exact middle amount or the average. It was like fifth or sixth. And they said that based on their package, since they have insurance also provided for, health insurance and certain benefits that come with longevity and things like that, they are actually the highest paid teachers. Teachers, of course, were upset about that claim, especially because they were there picketing because they couldn't agree on a contract. And they felt like that was kind of unfair to have this sign while they're picketing up there saying that they're the highest paid teachers in the state. So I think Ryan is kind of right in saying that the referendum in Sarasota, where it's already been in place, hasn't necessarily led to, they still have a teacher shortage problem. It's not possible to eliminate that entirely with more money.
And that goes back to, you look at USF, how many kids are graduating from there with degrees in education. It's dramatically lower than it was a decade ago. Same exact stats, just all over the country in education schools. So it's as much an issue of there's not people entering the workforce for that career as it is for the salaries aren't high enough.
Elizabeth, maybe you can mention as we close the Sarasota County Schools Facebook group.
Oh, yeah. So we have a new Facebook group that is great. It's Sarasota County Schools is the name, so not to be confused with the Sarasota County Schools Facebook page that they run. And it's a group where we want people just like you, ideally community members, parents, teachers, anyone who's interested in Sarasota County Schools to comment and read news about Sarasota County Schools, but more importantly, tell us things that are interesting to you and concerning to you because, we can't be everywhere all the time, and we do want to hear from people in the community.
One more question.
Oh.
You answered this a little bit, Elizabeth, but Jamie Lee Boutram asks, is some of the tax money going to go towards arts education now?
Yeah, so in Sarasota County, since it's already been in place since 2002, a lot of the money does go to arts education. We have a really helpful graphic on our website on the story we published on Sunday that shows you a breakdown of all the different, how the 56 million has been spent last year. And arts is one of the top categories that it goes to, and it funds all these different positions. And I don't know about Manatee County, but
in Manatee, I don't want to say definitively that it does not, but the money's going towards charter schools. They have to give a portion of it to charter schools, STEM development, salary enhancements. Those are the main categories. I have not seen anything towards arts specifically. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching.